Here are 30 most commonly asked interview questions for Salesforce testing positions, along with detailed answers. 1. What is Salesforce testing, and why is it important? Answer. Salesforce testing refers to the process of verifying and validating Salesforce applications, configurations, and customizations to ensure they meet functional and non-functional requirements. It's important because it helps ensure the reliability, performance, and usability of Salesforce solutions, reduces the risk of defects and errors, and enhances user satisfaction and productivity. 2. What are the different types of testing performed in Salesforce? Answer. There are several types of testing performed in Salesforce, including A. Unit testing, testing individual components, for example, Apex classes. Triggers, lightning components in isolation to validate their behavior. B. Integration testing, testing the interaction and integration between different components or systems, for example, Salesforce and external systems, to ensure data consistency and interoperability. C. System testing, testing end-to-end business processes and user scenarios to validate the overall functionality and usability of the Salesforce application. D. Performance testing, testing the performance, scalability, and responsiveness of the Salesforce application under different load conditions to ensure it meets performance requirements. E. User acceptance testing UAT, testing conducted by end users or stakeholders to validate that the Salesforce application meets their business requirements and expectations. 3. What is Apex testing in Salesforce, and how do you perform it? Answer. Apex testing in Salesforce involves testing Apex code, such as triggers, classes, and batch processes, to ensure it behaves as expected and meets business requirements. It's performed using Apex unit tests, which are written in Apex using the Salesforce test framework. Developers write test methods to simulate different scenarios, invoke Apex code under test, and assert expected outcomes using assertions. 4. What is the Salesforce test pyramid, and why is it important? Answer. The Salesforce test pyramid is a testing strategy that advocates for a balanced distribution of different types of tests, with a larger number of unit tests at the base, followed by integration tests, and a smaller number of end-to-end tests at the top. It's important because it helps optimize testing efforts, reduce test maintenance costs, and provide fast and reliable feedback on code quality and application behavior. 5. How do you handle data testing in Salesforce? Answer. Data testing in Salesforce involves validating data integrity, accuracy, and completeness within Salesforce objects and between integrated systems. Techniques for data testing include data profiling, data validation rules, data migration testing, and data comparison against source or target systems. Tools like Data Loader, Data Factory, and data validation rules are commonly used for data testing in Salesforce. 6. What is regression testing in Salesforce, and why is it necessary? Answer. Regression testing in Salesforce involves retesting previously validated functionality to ensure that recent changes or updates haven't introduced new defects or regressions. It's necessary because Salesforce applications are constantly evolving with new features, enhancements, and customizations, and regression testing helps maintain the stability and reliability of the application over time. 7. How do you automate testing in Salesforce, and what are the benefits? Answer. Testing automation in Salesforce involves using tools like Salesforce Test Automation Framework, Selenium, and Apex mocks to automate the execution of tests, including unit tests, integration tests, and end-to-end tests. Benefits of test automation include faster test execution, improved test coverage, reduced manual effort, early detection of defects, and increased confidence in the quality of Salesforce applications. 8. What are the different types of test data used in Salesforce testing? Answer. Different types of test data used in Salesforce testing include A. Sample data, representative data used to simulate typical scenarios and user interactions in Salesforce applications. B. Mock data, synthetic data generated for testing purposes, to cover edge cases, error conditions, or scenarios not covered by sample data. C. Production data, realistic data extracted from production environments and anonymized for testing purposes to validate application behavior in a real-world context. D. Data templates, predefined datasets used for specific test scenarios, such as data migration testing, data validation testing, or user acceptance testing. 9. How do you handle code coverage in Salesforce testing? Answer. Code coverage in Salesforce testing refers to the percentage of Apex code covered by unit tests and is measured using the Salesforce Developer Console or Salesforce CLI. Salesforce requires a minimum code coverage of 75% for all Apex code deployed to production environments. Developers write unit tests to cover different scenarios and ensure adequate code coverage, using assertions to validate expected outcomes and behavior. 10. What is the importance of test environments in Salesforce testing? Answer. Test environments in Salesforce testing provide isolated and controlled environments for conducting testing activities, such as development, testing, staging, and production. They ensure that changes to Salesforce configurations or customizations are thoroughly tested before deployment to production, minimize the risk of impacting end users, and provide a safe environment for experimenting with new features or updates. 11. How do you handle deployment testing in Salesforce? Answer. Deployment testing in Salesforce involves validating changes, configurations, or customizations before deploying them from one environment to another, for example, from sandbox to production. It includes activities like validating metadata changes, running regression tests, verifying data integrity, and conducting user acceptance testing to ensure that the deployment doesn't introduce new defects or disruptions to the production environment. 12. What are the best practices for writing effective unit tests in Salesforce? Answer. Best practices for writing effective unit tests in Salesforce include A. Test one thing at a time. Focus each test method on testing a single unit of functionality or behavior. B. Use descriptive method names. Use meaningful names for test methods that describe what they're testing. C. Cover positive and negative scenarios. Test both expected and unexpected behavior, including error conditions and edge cases. D. Use test data factory. Use factories or utility classes to create test data programmatically, making tests more maintainable and reusable. E. Assert expected outcomes. Use assertions to validate expected outcomes and ensure that code behaves as intended. F. Aim for high code coverage. Strive for high code coverage to ensure that most code paths are tested and validated. 13. How do you handle testing asynchronous processes in Salesforce? Answer. Testing asynchronous processes in Salesforce involves techniques like using the @future annotation, queuable Apex, or scheduled Apex to execute code asynchronously, and writing test methods to verify their behavior and outcomes. Developers use techniques like test startist and test stoptist to control the execution of asynchronous processes within test methods and ensure accurate testing of asynchronous behavior. 14. What are the benefits of test-driven development (TDD) in Salesforce? Answer. Test-driven development (TDD) in Salesforce involves writing tests before writing code, using test cases to define requirements and drive development. Benefits of TDD include improved code quality, better test coverage, early detection of defects, reduced debugging time, and increased confidence in the reliability and maintainability of Salesforce applications. 15. How do you handle code reviews in Salesforce testing? Answer: Code reviews in Salesforce testing involve reviewing Apex code, configurations, and customizations to identify defects, ensure adherence to coding standards, and validate that requirements are met. Best practices for code reviews include involving multiple reviewers, using checklists or coding standards, providing constructive feedback, focusing on code readability and maintainability, and ensuring that unit tests are included and pass successfully. 16. What is the importance of test automation frameworks in Salesforce testing? Answer: Test automation frameworks in Salesforce testing provide a structured and systematic approach to automating the execution of tests, managing test data, and reporting test results. They help standardize testing practices, improve test efficiency, reduce maintenance efforts, and enable scalability and repeatability of tests across different environments and projects. 17. How do you handle test data management in Salesforce testing? Answer: Test data management in Salesforce testing involves creating, maintaining, and provisioning test data for testing purposes. Techniques for test data management include using data loader, Salesforce DDEX, or third-party tools to import or export data, creating data templates or scripts for generating test data, and using sandbox environments or data masking techniques to anonymize and protect sensitive data. 18. What are the limitations of manual testing in Salesforce, and when is automation preferred? Answer: Limitations of manual testing in Salesforce include the need for manual effort, limited scalability, human error, and slower test execution compared to automation. Automation is preferred for repetitive, time-consuming, or complex testing tasks, such as regression testing, performance testing, or testing across multiple configurations or environments. 19. How do you handle cross-browser testing for Salesforce Lightning Web Components, LWC? Answer: Cross-browser testing for Salesforce Lightning Web Components, LWC, involves testing the compatibility and functionality of LWCs across different web browsers and versions. Developers use tools like Selenium, WebDriver, or browser testing frameworks to automate tests and simulate user interactions in various browsers, for example, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, to ensure consistent behavior and user experience. 20. What are the best practices for maintaining and evolving test suites in Salesforce testing? Answer: Best practices for maintaining and evolving test suites in Salesforce testing include: A. Regular test maintenance. Update test cases and test data to reflect changes in requirements, configurations, or code. B. Review and refactor tests. Periodically review test coverage. Identify redundant or obsolete tests, and refactor test code for readability and maintainability. C. Continuous improvement. Continuously evaluate and improve testing practices, incorporate feedback from test results, and adapt test strategies to evolving requirements and technologies. D. Version control. Use version control systems like Git to manage test code, track changes, and collaborate on test development and maintenance. E. Collaborative testing. Foster collaboration between developers, testers, and stakeholders to ensure that test suites address business requirements and provide value to the organization. 21. What are the common challenges faced in Salesforce testing, and how do you overcome them? Answer: Common challenges in Salesforce testing include complex data requirements, test environment management, test data setup, and test execution scalability. To overcome these challenges, organizations can implement strategies like using data management tools for test data setup, leveraging sandbox environments for testing, implementing automation for repetitive tasks, and adopting best practices for test data management and maintenance. 22. How do you ensure test coverage for declarative configurations in Salesforce? Answer: ensuring test coverage for declarative configurations in Salesforce. Involves using techniques like validating rules, process builder flows, workflow rules, and validation rules through manual testing, user acceptance testing, and automated end-to-end testing. Additionally, organizations can use metadata API tools or third-party testing frameworks to analyze and measure test coverage for declarative configurations. 23. What is the role of a quality assurance QA analyst in Salesforce testing, and what skills are required? Answer: quality assurance QA analyst in Salesforce testing is responsible for planning, designing, executing, and reporting on testing activities to ensure the quality and reliability of Salesforce applications. Required skills for a QA analyst include knowledge of Salesforce functionality and architecture, proficiency in testing methodologies and techniques, experience with test automation tools and frameworks, and strong communication and collaboration skills. 24. How do you handle testing, security, and access controls in Salesforce? Answer: testing security and access controls in Salesforce involves verifying that security settings, permissions, and access controls are properly configured, enforced to protect sensitive data, and ensure compliance with security policies. Techniques include validating user profiles, permission sets, field-level security, sharing rules, and record-level access controls through manual testing, automated tests, and security scanning tools. 25. What are the best practices for organizing and structuring test code in Salesforce? Answer: best practices for organizing and structuring test code in Salesforce include: A. Modularization. Break tests into smaller, modular units to improve readability, maintainability, and reusability. B. Naming conventions. Use descriptive and consistent naming conventions for test classes, methods, and variables to facilitate understanding and navigation. C. Test data factory. Centralize test data creation and management in utility classes or factories to ensure consistency and reduce duplication. D. Test suites. Group related tests into logical test suites based on functional areas or use cases to organize and prioritize testing efforts. E. Separation of concerns. Separate test setup, execution, and teardown logic to isolate dependencies and improve test reliability and maintainability. 26. How do you handle testing of custom Lightning components in Salesforce? Answer: testing off custom Lightning components in Salesforce involves writing unit tests, integration tests, and end-to-end tests to validate their behavior, functionality, and usability. Developers use techniques like component-level testing, event simulation, DOM manipulation, and stubbing dependencies to isolate and test individual components in different scenarios and environments. 27. What is the difference between validation rules and apex triggers in Salesforce testing? Answer: validation rules are declarative rules defined in Salesforce to enforce data integrity and consistency by checking field values or expressions against specified criteria. They're evaluated before data is saved to the database and provide immediate feedback to users. Apex triggers are programmatic logic written in Apex code to automate business processes, enforce complex validation rules, or perform custom actions before or after records are saved to the database. They offer more flexibility and customization than validation rules, but require development and testing effort. 28. How do you handle testing of record sharing and visibility in Salesforce? Answer: testing off record sharing and visibility in Salesforce involves verifying that record access, sharing rules, role hierarchy, and manual sharing are correctly configured and enforced to ensure appropriate record access for users. Techniques include creating test scenarios with different user roles, profiles, and sharing settings, and validating expected record visibility through manual testing, user acceptance testing, and automated tests. 29. What are the considerations for testing Salesforce communities and portals? Answer: considerations for testing Salesforce communities and portals include validating user experience, navigation, branding, customization, and integration with Salesforce CRM and external systems. Testing should cover features like user registration, login, access control, content management, collaboration, and mobile responsiveness to ensure that communities and portals meet business requirements and deliver a seamless user experience. 30. How do you ensure test data security and privacy in Salesforce testing? Answer: ensuring test data security and privacy in Salesforce testing involves implementing data masking, anonymization, or obfuscation techniques to protect sensitive data used in testing environments. Organizations can use tools like Data Masker or Data Anonymizer to scramble or replace sensitive data with synthetic or fictional data, while preserving its format and structure, ensuring compliance with privacy regulations and data protection policies. For more exciting tips, tricks, and more importantly, for valuable insights of interviews, please share, like, and subscribe to my channel. It has a lot of valuable information about various insights of interviews. It has a wide range of real-world portfolio projects of various technologies for interviews, and it has wide range of most asked interview questions and answers of various technologies like data science, SAP, AWS, DevOps, and full-stack web development, and more, that will be useful during interviews. It has a wide range of most asked interview questions and answers and real-world portfolio projects of various technologies for freshers, for 2 to 3 years, experienced candidates, and for 5 or above years, experienced candidates to test their skills by knowing most asked interview questions and make themselves ready for interviews.